too.
Yeah, yeah. So and there's your photo. There's your beautiful photo. So my name is Cynthia Lieberman. I am in marketing at Share. Welcome everyone. We have Mateo who is also here listening in on our group, and this roundtable is about creating safe spaces for LGBTQ plus, which is a very important subject that definitely needs to be addressed and discussed. So I'm very happy you're all here. It's being recorded. And we will be able to post this at a later date on the on our website, and I'll put that into the chat so you can get it later too. And if you have any questions, people can raise their hand. I think is probably the easiest way with the little hand signal. And why don't we start by going around the room, and I'm picking you by what's in my participant list, not in any particular order, so please understand. So Marcel, why don't you start over, introduce yourself and explain where you're from.
Oh, well, my name is Marcel. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a trans man. I am from Riverside County area. I work right now with Rainbow Pride Youth Alliance, but I was working with Borrego as a trans navigator specialist, which falls in the peer support category. Currently, I'm the TAE program coordinator for Rainbow Pride Youth Alliance. We work with folks between the ages of 18 and 26 at this time. And we're continuously expanding to start building a clinic and other programming as well. And we facilitate a lot of workshops, a lot of peer support groups. We're on campuses with high schools. We're on campuses with universities. We're just trying to make sure that the knowledge of the community is out there, and we're helping and reaching out anyone who wants to be part of the community as well. We do a lot of harm reduction as well, and a lot of care for the community when it comes to like sexual ed and stuff like that. So yeah, that's just what I'm doing right now. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer it.
Thank you. It's really interesting and a challenge in itself, and really an important thing that you're helping people, feel a little bit more comfortable in their space. So I think this is great. Youth, it's complex, as you know.
Yeah.
So that's great. And so Christopher, I've been with you for the past almost an hour and a half. Laurence, Christopher was in the room with us just a little bit ago. So Christopher, why don't you tell us your story?
I work at the DMH in Liberty Heights, which is it's near East LA. So the populace that we have is pretty much bilingual. I call it hybrid speaking. The environment is changing, to be honest. We're having more people come in, and we are not evolving yet. I'm trying to really make changes.
When you say evolving, what does that mean? You're not evolving yet?
I mean that we're getting. I do a lot of intake, and we get a lot of people coming in that are new, and we're getting more and more people that are part of the LGBTQ community. We're dealing with a lot of trans people who are coming in more, and yet we still are hung up with things like pronouns. We're not even good. One of the things I'm really trying to push that is a problem is that people come up to the window, they tell their name because that's what their Met account, but they're not asked what they would like to be called. And as someone that is consistently the person that does that calling, I end up having to call people's names that is not their name. That's just what they have to get in. And it produces problems that are unnecessary, in my opinion, as well as that. I feel that we're not in a crisis, but I feel that we are in an interesting kind of transitional period where our peer workers that are of a certain age, they're very inflexible, and they don't realize that. I made the joke to a worker that I work with a great deal that is queer, and I made the joke that's like we're 1990s in our clinic in a lot of ways. We're dealing with, I mean, it's not beyond a person to say, if you want to use the pronoun they and them, that they'll be like, thy, thou, the, whatever. I mean, stuff like that is what, especially I would say that where I feel that we're really starting to have a problem is with the peer force, that they're of a certain age. Some of them have been at that clinic for 30 years. They've been doing their thing a certain way, and they're not really all that interested in the change that is happening.
Yeah. Well, part of the problem that I see is that you know, people my age who I've been friends with all of my adult life, who know me and believe themselves to be really open-minded and I don't know what the term is, you know, like forward-thinking, progressive, open-minded, whatever you want to call it. Even when they get, even when they recognize trans or queer people, they still think in extreme, in rigidly binary terms. They can't get out of, you know, they're stuck in male and female.
I'll go one
Their
farther.
brains are like hardwired into
Hey,
the 20th
I tell you what,
century.
let's hold on for 1 second.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, I opened the door too. So, but I want to make sure that everybody gets, whoever contributes has an opportunity maybe to add into the conversation. So I'm just going to really quick continue to go around the room. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Laurence. Everybody meet Laurence Harmon. Laurence,
Larry, please.
yeah. So Laurence works at Share, and Laurence, a brief description of your reason for being in this room. Not reason for being in this room. I mean, who you are, what your background is.
I don't know what you want to know about my background.
I can read your bio. You're a peer specialist,
there you go. That's a good idea.
Who has decades of lived experience in recovery from complex serial trauma, severe mental illness, and substance abuse. And he and I are co-workers, and we actually have a shared wall sometimes in Culver City.
Not anymore. I'm downtown now.
Oh, that's right. You went downtown. That's right.
Okay,
I
I just wanted to add to that. Yeah. At Share, I'm Laurence because there's another Larry, and you know, when people ask for it, I want to talk to Larry, you know, so they have to call me Laurence. But the entire rest of the world calls me Larry. My pronouns are either Z and here or she and her, and Z and here are because those are ungendered pronouns. Because I'm a girl, but I'm not female, and I'm not binary, and I'm also not non-binary. I'm not entirely comfortable with even having a gender. Now, that is pretty complicated for a lot of people to grasp. So I also include the pronouns she and her, which they're okay. They're not accurate or anything, but you know, they're all, at least they aren't he and him, you know. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, you can actually see his, her, Z's pronouns, forgive me, pronouns in the identity on the screen in Zoom, if you wanted to understand that a little bit clearer. The next person, thank you, Laurence, is Danielle McFadden, who is with a peer specialist with Kings County Behavioral Health. Say hi, Danielle.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I was invited I think last week or week before. I'm excited to be on this panel. I hope to be able to share and also just glean from everybody. And I'm a little bit under the weather, so please forgive me. But I'll do my best to be a positive partaker in this group. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming and participating. When you're at, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the Kings County Behavioral Health and what your role is there in relationship to this topic.
Yes, thank you for that. So I'm a certified peer support specialist with Kings County Behavioral Health MOST program, which is a multiple organizational shared telepsychiatry. We service adults and children severely mentally ill, and some of them do struggle with either society or family or whoever. A good portion of them struggle with the identity of, of choosing female, male, or what have you. And I'm here just to, to support them and give options and some tools that they can use and be able to support them through their psychiatric appointments and stuff like that. And so it's important, I think, to have a non-bias, like just to be level, and accept people where they're at and be there for them to support them through the different situations, rather it's racial things they're going through, rather it's sexual, what have you. We're just important in an important role in their life, so that they can have someone to go to that can understand. And if we don't have the answers, we'll find others that do, and that way we can help them help themselves, right? And so the beauty of it is that when you come from a pure heart and you come from a non-biased place in your journey, that wellness and recovery can happen for them. And it's a beautiful thing when it's step by step, and it's person-centered, and they take control of how they want, like whether they're under 18 or over 18, or however, they're able to make their own decisions and stuff. And it's a beautiful thing to be a part of this new thing. I feel like it's a new thing happening. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
So Danielle, what pronouns should we use with you?
So I don't have any. I don't know. Like, I'm just Danielle's fine.
Want us to refer to you by name?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You know, the thing that I'm finding interesting, and I want to still introduce Mita, thank you for being here. And to all the guests who are here, my name is Cynthia, for some of you who came late, and I work for Share, and I'm kind of helping moderate sort of this roundtable here. And I'm really glad you're all here. Is what I'm hearing is that you, in your own positions or opportunities, you are providing safe space for people to express and explore and feel safe to kind of figure this all out and try to manage your fit in society, so to speak, and into the world and with each other, and respect each other in a very safe space, which at least that's what I heard from you, Danielle, and actually from all of you.
I couldn't have said it better. That's the most beautiful way. In all my words, you said it in just a few. So yes, ma'am, that's amazing to give it a safe space and say, you know what, it is what it is, and move forward and love life, and we're okay, you know. And yes,
well, thank you, because that's what I heard from
you.
One world, right? One people, one world. So I'm relieved, actually, because I want to treat everyone with equal respect here in a very safe space as well, so we can have a nice, open, truthful, honest, authentic, but safe place to explore, you know, how actually it's called Creating Safe Spaces, ironically, for the presentation itself. And Mita, you're from Borrego Health, and I think you've worked with Marcel before, so maybe you could to step into your peace of mind in this whole subject matter and explain who you are.
Hi, so I'm Mita. My pronouns are they, them. I'm currently a trans navigator with Borrego. I also do freelance education for recovery centers and other professional folks, basically doing trans 101 and non-binary 101 and how to not be harmful. And you know, it's
so why don't you tell us that? Well, let's open up with that statement. 101, you know, if you were to, someone walks in the room, and where do you know, what does that mean?
When somebody walks in the room when I'm talking to a group of
well, you
professionals,
just said you're speaking with people about trans 101, you said, and I'm just wondering, like,
yeah.
what is that?
So that's a 90-minute presentation to a group of professionals on how to not be harmful. I mean, I can't do that.
I'm just wondering about, like, I'm just trying to figure out something to open up the door for a topic. Y'all pick it, I'll just stand by.
Well, I think the topic here is a lot of people already on this call are expressing that trying to deal with trans and gender diverse humans is a new thing, and it's not a new thing, right?
No, it's not.
We've been around for thousands of years. I changed my name in the 90s because my name was too masculine. So it's really trying to understand that we need to shift our thinking away from how we were raised and how we were socialized in a heteronormative world.
I can agree with that. I feel like when it comes to creating safe spaces, like especially for trans and gender diverse folks, first off, you just don't want to assume their pronouns and just based off their appearance alone. You want to open those gates by also introducing yourself and introducing your pronouns as well, so they feel safe enough to do so. I feel like it's very important for us to kind of not judge a book by its cover, and most people here obviously clearly know that because we seem to be all on that spectrum when it comes to the LGBT folks. But it's really important to not creating those like harmful spaces and teaching other folks to like Mita said, unlearn those biases when it comes to that, because there are biases that society gives to trans folks on how they're supposed to look trans enough, and it's not trans enough, or to be gay enough or something like that. So when we talk about creating safe spaces, what does that look like for everyone? It's always going to be different for other people, but it's definitely not assuming for me.
Right. And it's like getting the pronouns right and getting someone's name right. Like, you know, we talked about with Larry, right? It's Larry.
Yeah.
Right. And like those are table stakes, right? Like that's the bare minimum that we can do. And you know, and like the basic thing from like pronouns 101 is introduce yourself with your pronouns. Even if, you know, even if you're a cis person, introduce yourself with your pronouns. And if somebody else doesn't, right, we can model what Larry just did and say, how may I address you? Right. And Danielle said, my pronouns are none. Right. And then we're done. We refer to Danielle as Danielle from now on. Like that is table stakes in creating a safe space for all humans. Right.
Some of us at where I work are starting to wear with our badge, so, you know, our DMH badge. We're wearing also a button that tells our pronouns. So we're immediately encountering people, and that's, you know, much more open to a conversation.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. That's very great. I'm so sorry, Larry. Go ahead.
Is it Christopher or Chris? What do you go by?
It's either, I just normally use Christopher in environments like this, so if there's someone that's named similar sounding, I'm able
Yeah,
to
I got the same problem in Chair. Yeah, I'm supposed to be Laurence in Chair, but I'm really Larry. Chris or Christopher. I forget what I was going to ask you. Yeah, my brain just melted away. So remind me.
Okay.
Wait a minute. I was going to ask you. So you work with the DMA? You work with the DMH?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. And you said earlier that there are some people because see, share contracts extensively with DMH,
Mhm.
and I was just wondering what the culture is like at DMH.
Well, I can only speak about where I work, which because the culture has to be considered to be part of the resistance that we have. The majority of our peer workers are not young. They're in the 50 and above age. They speak Spanish as their first language, and they are, unfortunately, the conversation is that's being kind of given as the excuse for the inability to start to adapt, which I'm just not buying that. I'm not going with that, you know. But it is really, like, I had a conversation with the director because I had a really bad week a few weeks ago where, as I said, I do intake a lot. I had to deal with a trans person, and I had to say a name because it was the only name they were going to give me that I knew was I knew when I said it, that it was going to be uncomfortable. And I was very affected by it. I mean, to the point where I had to have some therapy about it with someone that I work with as an occupational therapist. And she's queer, which helps. And it didn't end there. A few days later, I go up, you know, I go to the area where the clerks are, and they give me a person's name, and they say, oh, by the way, they're very uncomfortable with someone that's male. And I was like, which, again, keep in mind, I'm essentially a glorified volunteer, so I don't have a lot of power. I was like, this isn't good. This is not only is this not good, this makes no sense to me. And I was forced basically to deal with that. And of course, everything you could imagine to go wrong went wrong. The person, I mean, first of all, not only did they call someone male to do this, but I'm very tall. So it's like I've got, you know, I've got every thing to check that's going to be intimidating and uncomfortable. And the worst thing for me was that no one really was listening to me. That was, you know, that I'm supposed to go to, and the person, I didn't even have to even address them. once they just saw me being handed a piece of paper,
Mhm.
you know, behind the window, it became a mess.
Mhm.
And what really messed me up the most was that I have to monitor people that are doing their intake, right? And so I was sitting basically, well, they of course did get somebody to deal that was a worker, that was a woman, and but it was like 2 rooms down from where I was. There was just, you know, there was chaos. The person was really spiraling in an episode. They were, you know, they were almost incommunicative with it, and security was brought in and everything. And for me, it felt like
Oh,
I did this. You know, I was really upset. I was like, man, this is my fault. I made this thing happen.
mhm.
And I was, to be blunt, I was pissed after this. And I did go like to the director, and I did go and say, this is a problem, that this shouldn't be happening. This is not recognizing people. We're trying to make a safe environment for people to address mental health, which for a lot of people, it's really tough just even walking in that door. And now we're having this. And, you know, and the conversation was, you're right, this is not good. We're trying to change. And there is, like, they're suggesting, which is partially because of myself and the worker that recently came that really backs me up. We're going to have, where everybody has to be, all these peers that run groups, they're going to have to be trained again. Doesn't matter if they've taken their training, it isn't taking.
Mhm.
And we are dealing with a new populace coming in more than the regulars. The regulars are the ones that are more and more the peers that come to, and they're inflexible. They're not really cooperative. And this is, you know, we're starting, it's gradual, but we are starting to like make changes that are not, you know, this isn't mutable. This is real. This is going to happen. You're going to have to deal with this. You can't just, you know, you can't do the they, thou, thou, whatever. That's not cool.
Mhm.
That, I mean, that really to me is very not cool. As a person that runs a group, I also am trying to make to where my group is more inclusive, in that I do something called music empathy, because I have a music background. It's just basically kind of touching into music and having, like, it can be about triggering memories, and, you know, basically finding ways to use music as a support. And one of the things is that I'm introducing music that, like, lyrics are very much a big part of this, that deal with subjects that are queer based and stuff. But in fact, what I'm bringing this
So
coming up Wednesday is a song that's called "I'm Still Your Fag," and it's a really powerful song, in my opinion, about acceptance and you know, and that's something that just hasn't happened, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm doing. People need to be seen. They need to be seen. We talk about person-based, but if we're not seeing people, we're not doing person-based, in my opinion.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing, it sounds to me like you're talking about a couple of things going wrong. One of them is dead naming, and another one is people just not being flexible enough to use the correct pronouns.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Dead naming, misgendering on a regular basis. It sounds like you have an inflexible workforce and an inflexible work environment, maybe.
We're getting, because of the coronavirus, we basically had a hiring freeze. We're getting people coming in, and they are becoming more what I feel we need. We're having people that the conversation is like, I had to do a review that comes like every few years, and there was actual conversation that was dealing with, for me, for the first time, LGBTQ questions. And I've been going to the clinic as a client as much as a worker for like 6 years.
Mhm.
And but again, I feel I'm one of those people that feels like if you want to really make change, then you have to do something about it. You don't just say, well, this sucks, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so that's my thing.
I'm kind of wondering what the rest of you all think about this, or what are your experiences with anything like this or unlike this? Anybody?
I would say with me, Mita, and Mateo, we all worked together at Borrego and did a lot of Trans 101 and did a lot of training for other outside organizations that were willing to learn and people who were stubborn as well. And even within our own clinic and with our own organization, there were people who were stubborn to learn the ways they was too new for them or something like that. But when you educate people, and it does take a while, there's going to be people always, no matter what you do, who are going to refuse to change, and that's going to be harmful for others. And until they realize the harm causing others, I don't think that there's really anything we can do about them, because even then they don't really care. If they cared enough, they would honestly stop, using someone's old name and use their true name, and stop using the wrong pronouns and use the correct ones. And creating these like educational points of what the importance of using someone's name and pronouns are and what effect that it causes, the trauma and stuff like that, is definitely something that we should all across the board have training on, especially for those who want to like kind of push back. And some people who do have pushback, who do come to our trainings, have said, oh, I didn't realize that harm I was causing. Because they don't understand that when you're using the false name and you're using the wrong pronouns, the actual trauma effect and hurt that it's causing people is astronomical. It's the same way as if they were someone who's getting like punched, I guess you could say. Like if it's not, you don't physically see it, right? You don't physically see the harm. It's still there. The trauma is still there. So, oh, sorry, I see something. One of my coworkers texted me, but I don't know. Mita, do you wanna add anything? Because I think you're more.
Yeah, well, so and I'm trying to put it in context here a little bit with what Christopher was talking about. And 2 points. I don't know what kind of intake system or EHR that you're using. But there's always, you got to be creative and find a way to put somebody's use name or their actual name in there, and find some way to put their pronouns in, even if it's a sticky note that pops up every time you open their charts, and try to get everybody on board. And as far as the dead naming and the pronoun stuff, one of the things that I like to tell groups of people that are kind of new and trying to remember is remember that it's harm, right? So, and it happens so many times. Like I go out, I wear a lot of like ankle length dresses, and people approach me like a dude in a dress, right? So everything is possibly misgendering, and every time you misgender somebody, you're creating harm. So imagine that you went out and somebody stepped on your foot, right? It hurts, but you blow it off, and think about how many times a day you would have to get stepped on your foot before you completely lose your shit and yell at somebody. Okay. Working from home, being on these Zoom calls, I probably get misgendered 30 times a day. When I leave my house and I go to a clinic or something, it's probably 50 times. So
a day?
Yes. So when you think, and I'm counting misgendering, mispronouncing, names, whatever, right? So think about this way and talk to your coworkers about how many times would you have to get your foot stepped on before you lost your shit? And do you want to be that person that is that 15th or 20th time of causing that harm to that person, right? Because everybody in this profession, we got into it to help people, right? So why would we do something to actively cause someone harm, right? I grew up in the South, and it was real easy to equate misgendering somebody to using racial slurs, right? And I have to tell you, when I lived in Riverside County, I'm in San Diego now, but when I lived in Riverside County, there were parts of Riverside County where, using that example, people were like, okay, I use racial slurs every day. And what was frightening was they were honest about it. You know, so I think that's, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
But I think the stepping on the toes thing and the hey, do you really want to be that person causing that next level of harm really helps get it into people's heads, right? And it's trying to find these analogies that'll stick in our coworkers' heads, that'll help them remember, right? And because at some point it's you know, how many times do you have to repeat something before it becomes a habit, right? And I will give people grace to a point, but you know, like this, I'm old doesn't help. Like that is not an excuse.
I can agree with that. I think that that is like my most, I don't know, it's like an ick for me that I get this from any person who's a little older is like, well, in my days, in my culture, well, my age, you know, it wasn't a thing, but it was a thing. It just wasn't as prominent as in now. We have a platform now. We're more visible now because we have more things, more rights that we have, and more rights that are being taken away now as well. That from LGBT's perspective as well. But it's like because of that and because of this platform, we're able to be more visible. And it's not that we didn't exist. It's before we had to kind of hide who we were.
Yeah. Well, I think that has maybe something to do with, this may be the case with people who are older, us being visible and us being regarded as legitimate being who we are. It seems as though a lot of people feel that that is taking something away from them. That seems to be something that's going on. Like me just being she and her or she and here, they don't just dislike it. I'm taking something away from them, or I'm cheating them out of something, or I don't know what it seems something like that seems to be going on in their heads or something.
I can agree with that. I see a lot of especially women at this point saying that trans women or trans femme folks are taking away from what woman means or womanhood means, and nobody's trying to strip anyone of their rights, or no one's trying to strip away a womanhood or manhood. We're just trying to be inclusive in that space because we've always existed. We are not saying, hey, you're less of a woman because you're cis. We're saying, hey, you're just as much of a woman as a trans woman is, and that doesn't make her any less because she doesn't have what you have. She's still a woman. Like, and that's an argument that obviously is continuously happening at this point. I just, that's what I'm seeing as well. So I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, the same argument there was what we used when we were trying to get same-sex marriage passed, right? Like, I'm not taking anything away from you, but it's the idea of making a cultural generational shift. And I think I really think that the pandemic, it put people put people at home for months on end, and it allowed them to work on themselves and realize that they've been living a lie, right? I can look through my socials and look at how many people have come out either as gay or as trans or as non-binary during or post-pandemic because they were able to sit at home and take a break from their daily grind and actually explore themselves. And it's beautiful. And I think part of our struggle now is how do we create these spaces for that to happen, but at the same time, keep some grace for these people that aren't changing, right?
Yeah, how do we balance that out? Yeah.
Because I want to give grace, right? Like I want to give grace to some of these people that are struggling, but it's almost like, it's like the thing from Al-Anon, right? Like I want to see progress, not perfection. Right? Like I want to see that they're working on it.
It's like, you know, where I work is just an unusually good place for queer people to work because, first of all, I'm 30 years older than my coworkers. okay, and they're damn good about, gendering me correct. I mean, really good. And they occasionally slip up, and when they do, they will correct themselves usually. But I don't, this is not a typical workplace, I don't think.
Yeah. I feel like where I work too at Rainbow Pride Youth Alliance, a lot of the staff is mostly actually non-binary. And so it's a very warm and welcoming place for people of any LGBT identity, and they're never misgendering. And I think that when it comes to giving grace to people, we have to have like a limit as well, because if they're actually trying, if they're actually making an effort, if they're trying to educate.
What I require is, I require an honest, good faith effort.
Yes, and that I can agree with that. I agree. If they're making an effort, and if they're,
a good faith effort, not a token effort.
not like like I'm going to do the bare minimum effort. I'm talking about they are taking the training seriously. They are learning. They're trying to unlearn these biases, and they're trying to relearn in a way that is very inclusive of folks. That is an effort on my behalf that I can feel. Now, if you're not making an effort and you're purposely misgendering me and then trying to make it seem like you're not, that's when the grace kind of starts to fall off at that point. There are people who are actively trying to, who do have biases, and they unlearn them, and they go to these trainings, and it opens their eyes, and they don't realize, like I said before, the harm that they're causing to the LGBT community or the trans community at all. And when they get to these trainings and they realize that seriousness, they actually change. They just didn't realize what they were doing wrong, or the history. And once they get educated, it makes it easier for them to understand and to initially humanize us, is what I can say. Like, I feel sometimes they don't humanize us enough, and that's the problem when it comes to this stuff.
Okay. What do the rest of y'all think? Anybody who hasn't spoken yet? What do y'all think?
Yeah, I can go ahead and speak a little bit. So I work at Tarzana Treatment Centers College, and I run the peer training program here. But prior to working in this program, I worked for We Exist, which was still under Tarzana at the time. And we did like LGBTQ plus workplace trainings for clinical providers. And my team that I worked with prior was very, very clear. Multiple staff members were trans or non-binary, including myself. And then I kind of went over to this new program, and it's very isolated because most of my colleagues now are not part of the community. And I find that they view me almost as like a watchdog, ensuring that they're using people's pronouns correctly. And it seems like they definitely will use the correct pronouns in my presence, but because of how much they stumble over it, it feels almost like they're only doing it when I'm around. Mm-hmm. Whereas it seems like potentially when other staff are around who are not a part of the community, they will probably use the incorrect pronouns either for myself or for a few other colleagues on my staff who exclusively use they them pronouns. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of just like in this weird moment where I'm trying to figure out how to deal with performativity in a place that is presenting itself as gender affirming, when it just feels like a performance, or to some extent it feels like virtue signaling. And so I'm just kind of figuring out how to recognize authenticity when it comes to learning and recognizing those biases versus doing it because they feel like they have to.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What about the rest of you? Any insights or experiences? Or
I say that, depending on, there are biases that are like outright obvious, obviously, like when it comes to trans folks. But then there also are the underlying ones that aren't as obvious. And coming from working at Borrego, and I use this lightheartedly as they're transitioning, I do feel there are some spaces that are very performative when it comes to saying they're gender affirming or saying that they're LGBT safe spaces, and they really aren't open to learning those things. And the biases being that certain trans people have to do certain things or look certain ways to be acknowledged as a trans person, or as a he or her or they, or aren't as deserving of certain health care because they don't meet criteria or stuff. Not every trans person is going to want all the surgeries. Not every trans person is going to use the same pronouns. Not every trans person is going to look the same. We all look different. There's also intersectionality when it comes to that. There's trans people of color. There are indigenous trans folks. You have to look at everything as a whole sometimes, and then go from there. And I think when it comes to looking at it, you got to look at those little biases. And like Mita said earlier, if your company has like sticky notes or alerts that they can put up for pronouns, that could help someone. If you can put in their like the preferred name, that can help someone. If you see someone outright purposely not using someone's name or pronouns, it's definitely a good idea to maybe correct them. Maybe they don't know, and give them the benefit of the doubt the first few times, but at some point or another, there has to be a being like, hey, no, this is harmful, And I agree with
I just did a presentation on pronouns. One of the things that I talked about was increasingly in especially the last year or so, I'm less and less inclined to correct, depending on what the environment is, depending on the people around. I'm less inclined to correct people's mistakes. And the reason why is because maybe that person doesn't feel safe being correctly gendered in that space, in that place with those people, and you never know who's around. And because hatred against us is just ramping up so alarmingly huge and fast in such a short period of time. This whole landscape is changing very rapidly, and stuff that I would do a year and a half ago, I'm not doing. I'm not correcting. If I'm in a safe space, yeah. But if there's any doubtful, kind of people around or hostile people, no, I'm not going to do it. And that is changing very, very rapidly because it's becoming more and more. I'm just speaking from my own experience and the experience of my trans friends. We're increasingly, but trying to fly under the radar, really.
It looked like Darren had their hand up, but they took it down.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of things, actually. First of all, sorry for coming in late. I live in Australia, and I went to 2 sessions because it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I couldn't do it. I had to go back to sleep, so sorry. And I've come into this late, but what a beautiful way to start my day, to come into and to talk about this conversation, because I think it's so important. So I didn't hear the presentation, but I just think the same thing's happening in Australia, Larry. Like I'm cisgendered male, and I'm just terrified for like our folk who because I have a lot of I have a lot of people in my networks very intentionally from LGBTQ A space. So I think it's okay to keep yourself safe. I think when keep your head down if you need to. I don't know. It's but the other thing I would say is I'm just so excited in the transformation in my because I used to say, yes, I'm a feminist. But now we've come so far, though. I think we've come. Like I still love feminism, but that was all about politics and about getting equal pay, real. But now queer theory is just done. It just the things that I'm listening to, and I took down a couple of notes from what Ashley was saying, and I'll go and look that up. And I just love this space. So
Excuse me
Thanks,
one second.
Ashley.
Welcome, Darren from Australia. I love Australia. I've been to Brisbane and Sydney. I love it. I love your country. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about your perspective from your country. And Ashley and all of you guys, this has been fascinating. The next session is coming up at 4:30. I want to make sure, but maybe you could tell us, what is lived experience? I mean, what is it that is your experience in Australia, or what do you do in this space? Do you work in this space, Darren?
Well, I'll put it up in the chat. So I'm a board member of Lived Experience Australia, which is we call ourselves a consumer carer advocacy organisation. So I'll just grab that and put that up in chat. And I do some contract work, really.
That's great.
And but I was a peer worker, working face-to-face with people for about 20 years. And now through Lived Experience Australia, I run communities of practice with peer workers. And I just love that. Love it.
That's fantastic.
If anyone is wondering what a community of practice is, go online and check it out, because it's the best way to share your learnings with each other. I just love rather than teaching people how to do shit, it's sharing your common experiences. Thanks for asking that. I appreciate that.
Well, it takes a village. It takes a global village. It takes a human village. And the fact that it's crossing borders here and going into other countries to share the love of what is important about the acceptance of everyone in humanity is just really great. So and I wanted you to know that this is recorded, and it will be in the next couple of weeks. We'll have it up, and you can come back and listen to it again if you want to check.
Yeah,
and also
I will.
Lawrence is before this. Yeah, great, awesome.
Because I was looking forward to it, and I listened. I was up at 1 o'clock. I listened to 2 sessions, and then I'm like, nah.
Yeah, that was enough already. Yeah, right. We like your cat too. I'm a cat person, so just by the way. Does anyone else have some extra added value here before because this has been great, and I'm glad it kind of took a life of its own because you're the experts and I'm here just keeping things moving. And does anyone have something else they would like to ask? Now is the time. I know, Mateo, you were driving, but you're paying attention. And I don't know if there's anyone else who wanted to comment before we close up. I'm going to put some information in the chat about us and everything to make sure you know what to do if you want to follow up. So anybody else want to come up to the mic, so to speak? This has really been great. How about one takeaway from each person? The biggest takeaway in the work that you do to keep things space, the best tool for creating safe space, succinctly going around the room, starting with Christopher. What is your one tip for the best thing you can do to create, in your experience, a safe space for someone in this subject matter?
For me, just see the person, look at the person, it's not that hard if you are accepting what you're doing. So to me, just seeing the person, whoever is coming in, whatever the situation is. I see that bigger than just even what we're talking about. I see that as trying to find something to anchor to what their experience is a big part of me. First, you got to see them, Yep.
And meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
Very good. Very nice. Darren, how about you, just for the heck of it?
Wow, I'm on the spot here I think, for me, it's always been just share the love, share yourself. But I think it's really important, don't overly invest in the outcome that you're looking for. Share your whatever, try to share your change in the world or whatever you're trying to do. But if people don't do it straight away, then don't take that to heart too much.
So open heart, open mind. Right?
Open heart, open mind. And if the outcome doesn't happen for another 10 years, that's okay. That's okay.
Oh, that sounds healthy. What do you think, Danielle? Safe space is something that you really talked about in the very beginning in your introduction. Although maybe she's on mute. I can't see everybody. What about, who did I miss? Marcel, what about you?
I definitely say the takeaway from this is definitely unlearning biases and definitely listening to what the client needs, and making sure that that safe space is safe enough for them to be them authentic self, is my biggest takeaway from here.
Awesome. And I'm not leaving you out, Larry. Don't worry. How about you? Thank you, Marcel.
Excuse me, pardon me?
No, I just said thank you, Marcel. That's all. Go ahead.
My biggest takeaway is that I'm really kind of amazed at how unsafe some of these spaces are, because you know, I work and socialize and whatever in pretty safe spaces and hang out with people who are safe. And wow, yeah, this is kind of eye-opening to me. You know, just
good. Well, revelation is good.
Yeah, how unsafe it is in a lot of places.
Yeah. Let's see, who did Mita? Mita, did you speak? I don't think so yet about this, your takeaway on this.
They might not be able to answer because they got a call from a patient, so they may not.
Okay. Well, that's kind of important.
In the chat, I got a call. Yeah, call from.
Okay. Okay, I didn't see that because I was speaking. Well, I really want to thank you guys. I think we should probably wrap this up now. Again, Ashley, thank you for contributing here, and to all the other people that are in the room that are here. It's important that we, you know, that we share the love, right? That's the password for all these rooms, and I'm glad that you're here to share that with other people. And fortunately, again, it's recorded and it will be up there and available if you decide later you want to show this to one of your clients or show it to someone. And there's information about Share in the site. I'm Cynthia at shareselfhelp.org, and I wish you all the best. Namaste. Thank you.
Bye, folks.
The next session, by the way, ironically, in this room is From Burnout to Bliss, Managing Burnout in the Workplace. And, there's other panels on, but that's what I'm on next at 4:30. So if you want to come back, come on down. Have a great weekend or great evening, and good luck to all of you. Thank you.